Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of So Chatty. It is episode 178 for March 14th, 2025. And today we're going to finish up the tote bag, but this is take two. We actually recorded this yesterday and realized, when I thought I had the record button pressed, I didn't have the record button pressed. And it is working right now. We've double checked that, so we're good to go. Anyways, I wasn't happy with what we recorded yesterday. I was all over the place. I think I'm better organized today. I'm hoping so. Okay, so before we go on to the last part of making the in the hoop patchwork or quilted patchwork bag, as it is called, I'm going to show you another bag that I just finished. It's a clutch. It's the Steampunk Clutch by Sweet Pea Designs. There were some difficulties with this, and I am going to go over some of those difficulties with you after we have talked about the last part of the in the hoop tote bag we've been working on for the last few weeks. But needless to say, there were a lot of problems with this, and not because of my stupidity. It was because of the stupidity of the pattern. More about that later, but the end result did turn out, and yeah, it looks pretty good. And in real life, here it is right here. As you can see, it has a magnetic closure. There is a zipper to close it up. If I find the zipper here. And the entire thing, with the exception of the straps, are all done in the hoop. There is no extra sewing you have to do, with the exception of the straps, as I already said, and the little D-ring straps, but I consider that all part of the straps. Those have to be done on your domestic machine. But we'll talk about the little problem I had with this in a few minutes. We'll put that aside right now. Now, the other thing is, somebody didn't do his homework. I wonder who it was.
What? I still have 2 panels to finish.
So you're not going to be seeing Walter's version of the bag we've been working on. You are going to see my version. And if you remember, last week I screwed up. When I was boxing the corners, I cut in too far. Well, first of all, I didn't follow their instructions exactly for making them, because I've got that special ruler for cutting those corners out. Not that you need a special ruler, but I have it. I thought I'd use it.
And we also misinterpreted the size of the cutout. The way it sort of sounded on the thing, that you needed a 2-inch cutout, and when it actually was that you needed a 1-inch cutout.
Yeah.
Meaning 1 + 1 equals 1 on each side equals 2. So.
And again, and I'm glad Walter said we, because that included him.
I watched him do it, so...
Well, the thing was, though, it's the way they described it in the instructions. They did it if you've ever done a box corner before, you know, you sort of pull it in, match up the side seams, you get a point, and then you cut off, actually you stitch across that point so far away from the point, and you might clip off the excess, and then that makes your box corner. And the further in you go from that top point, the bigger your bottom. But the problem with that is, in the case of this project, we were putting faux leather as part of the bottom, and it was to come up about 1/4 of the way on the body of the bag. Well, it said to cut 2 inches, but the way they did the 2 inches, you had to study the diagram because it wasn't clear in their written description. You laid the ruler across the point,
right,
so that your 0 mark and your 2 mark lined up along it, which made it 1 inch, not 2 inches. By cutting 2 inches, as I did, the bottom disappeared. Well, it had a bottom, but it made the whole bag square, not rectangular, and you didn't see any of the faux leather. It was there, and it wasn't unattractive. Like, I could have left all of that. You just had a little bit...
It stood up on its own.
It stood up on its own, yes. So you didn't have to worry about that. You had a square bag, but that wasn't the point. And we also intended last week to show you how to finish the bag, make the lining, and how to make the handles. Now, they have one way of making the handles, which is the way that I have made many times that way. It's basically you take 4 inches of fabric by about 20 inches or whatever length you want the handles to be. You, oops, finger up on my face. You fold that piece of fabric, that strip, in half, give it a crease, open it up, fold in one edge to that center line, the other edge to that center line, give it a crease, and then fold the whole thing in half again, and then do a top stitch down both sides of it, and that makes your strap. And that's pretty much a standard way to make a strap. But I wanted to do a method that I saw on Adam Sews. Adam shows that he takes the webbing. You know, you can buy handle webbing, and I have some of it, and I've used it on some of my bags. I like using it, actually, but if you want a more decorative handle for your bag, maybe using some of the fabric that you already put into the bag, then the way you can do this is you still cut your strip of fabric, but down the center of it, you lay down a strip of your webbing, and you'd have to adjust your sizes depending on how wide that webbing is. And then what you do is you fold one edge of the fabric into the center, or approximately the center. No, you fold it into the edge of the webbing on one side, same on the other, crease it with your iron, and then you fold the two flaps over towards the center of that nylon so they overlap slightly, and then you top stitch down that. And what that does is your handle will look the same as if you made it the traditional way, but it's going to reinforce it. It makes a stronger handle. So if you want a heavy duty bag, that's one way to go, but you still get the decorative look. Anyways, we will show you that in today's video. And the lining and the apps, all the finishing up of the whole thing. Now what I did was, because he didn't do his homework, I went ahead and finished the whole bag so you could see it. So we're going to play that video clip in here now, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about this sucker, because there was a lot of things that I think you need to know if you want to do that clutch. So here's the video of finishing up the Patchwork quilted patchwork bag. Yeah, that's what it's called. So after all the problems I had last week, I decided to go in and take that bottom of the bag off and redo it properly. So now you can see the outside of my bag right here, and I have a much better bottom than I had before, because I cut it properly this time. So that has been fixed, and actually it wasn't that hard to fix, to take off that piece. It came off pretty easily. And I have made my lining as we showed last week, and basically with the lining you do the same thing as you do with the bag. You stitch it 1/2 inch in from both seams, all the way down to the bottom, and then you box the corners just like we did with this bag that we were showing you last week, except I cut off a smaller amount in the corners. Now I used my special ruler for this, and that worked out fine. So these are both laid out now, ready for constructing the handles, and that's what I'm going to do next. But you want to leave your lining turned inside out, and you want your bag part to be turned right sides out. And we'll come back. Now we're going to make the handles, and we need to make 2 of them. I'm going to make them a little bit different than what the instructions call for. The instructions say to cut a 4-inch by 20-inch piece of your fabric, and I've interfaced this as well with a little SF101 as well, which is a fusible interfacing, just to give it a little bit more body. And I have cut, though, what they would do at this point is they would turn it in and then turn it in both sides and stitch those 2 edges together and do some top stitching, and you'd be done. I want to make my handles just a little bit more substantial. So as I said, I put in the SF101, and then I've cut a piece of webbing the same length, about 20 inches, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue stick on the back of this after I mark 2 center points. So I'm going to come in, because this is 4 inches, I'm going to come in, put a mark at 2 inch here, and I've already done it right there, and a 2-inch mark from the edge in the middle there. And I'm going to take this piece of webbing, a little awkward when I'm holding a camera, and I'm going to, center it as best I can with those marks. So the 2-inch mark would be in the center of this and here. And I'm going to put my glue stick down on one side and just to hold it there. And then I'm going to fold in one edge of this right up to the edge of the webbing, and do the other side. Do the same thing on the other side, other edge up to there. Press it, and then I'm going to bring the 2 edges in over top of the webbing. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Here's my finished handle right down here, and you can see it's got a fair amount of strength to it, and we have a seam right down the middle here, and then I top stitched on both sides just to give it a finished look. But I'll come back and show you what I mean about folding. So I have my 2 edges of my strap fabric folded in so it's at the edge of the webbing on both sides, and now I'm just going to fold each one of these over. There'll be a bit of overlap, and I did use a little glue stick under here just to help hold it down when I gave it a little light press. So I'll show you what it looks like just before we are about to stitch it. So I have the straps folded over, and now I've given them a bit of a press to keep them there. You could clip them if you wanted to. And now I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine. I'm going to stitch from this top edge, because there's that little bit of overlap, about 1/8 of an inch all the way down, and then I'll flip it over and I'll stitch 1/8 of an inch from each edge on either side just to give it a little bit of a finished look. And on the ends as well, I will go across these at 1/8 of an inch. Now that's just to secure everything. Those will get buried in the seam allowance in the bag. So the finished strap looks like this that I have down here below. You can see where I stitched down along there and then flip it over, and I have stitched 1/8 of an inch in on either side, a top stitch in at the end of the strap as well. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so I have stayed stitch my handles to the bag on both sides, and it's really easy to do. You just line it up with the top, and I marked the center of the strap. This is the wrong side of the strap coming down, so it in line with the seam that is here, and it just comes around. Make sure you don't get it twisted, and bring it back up to the top, and then just stay stitch it, and then when you've done that and pull it up, you'll have your handle in the right orientation. So leave that down, and this is on the outside of the right side of the bag, and I did the same on the reverse for the 2 handles. And now we're going to assemble the bag and the lining. So I have taken the bag itself with the right sides out and stuffed it into the lining, and the lining had the wrong side out. And then I've lined up all the top. I lined up the side seams first on each side. I clipped those, and then I went all the way around, as you can see, and have clipped this. Now this takes a little bit of time because you don't want any wrinkles in it, and you can't have too many clips, I find, with this. So now that that part's done, we're going to take it to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew the lining in, and we're going to sew it from the inside out right now and follow that line that we have on here. That is going to be our sew line. That way none of our lining will be poking out over the top of the bag, and we're going to go follow that all the way around the perimeter of the bag. So I've sewn all the way around the perimeter of the bag following that stitch line, and now I'm going to berth the main bag out through that hole that we put. Remember that in the bottom of the lining? We're going to pull the whole thing through, and then we're going to push out our corners and pull up our straps, and then we can go to the last stage, which is to top stitch all the way around the perimeter. So I have clipped all the way around the top perimeter of my bag, making sure that the lining is down inside the bag, that there isn't any of it peeking up over top of the edge of the bag. You may get a little of that when you start to sew it, because holding it down is not easy when you're trying to force all of this underneath your needle, but you want to keep it as tight as you can because it gives it a nice finished appearance. So I'm going to take it to the machine, and I'm going to top stitch this, and I'll be back to show you the final result. And there you have it, the final bag, all sewn up, all lined, nice handles, nice bottom. So I was able to recover from those errors that I made earlier. So yeah, that turned out quite nice. Okay, so I hope that clarified some of the things that I screwed up the week before. And as I said, we'll see next week, we'll see Walter's efforts at it, hopefully. Yeah, got a whole week to get that done. How far are you on it, by the way?
I said I've got 2 panels left to do.
Still?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm not too speedy yet.
No, you're not. Yeah, whatever. But I'm not going to get into the discussion with him because he will tell me why it's my fault that he didn't get it done because he had to do all these other things.
Yeah. I have to be motivated.
Well, how about if I kick your ass? Will that motivate you? No, you'd like that. Okay, so let's talk about this thing, the clutch. Now, I wasn't interested in making a clutch until I saw this, and several people I know have also made it. But I thought it was a great opportunity. Well, first of all, it's steampunk, and I like steampunk design. But I wanted to try making a bag that uses the faux leather that we bought, which we were using in the one you just saw the video for. And so I did. I used faux leather in this. And you can see here, there's faux leather in this panel and in this panel along the top of the clutch and on the back as well. And I think it gives it a very professional look as opposed to just using fabric. You can do this with just using all fabric. You don't need to use faux leather with it. And in some cases, not using the faux leather is not a bad idea. More about that in a second. So, anyways, I got it all done. I wanted to see what it's like to make a clutch in the hoop. And this one also is fully lined inside. And you do all the lining on the embroidery machine. Yes, there aren't many. I have yet to find a tote bag where you do that. Maybe because they're bigger. But this one, that lining, everything is all done in the hoop. So I want to try that. So the only thing you're sewing on a domestic machine, as I said, is the strap and the D-ring pieces that hold the strap. And yeah, that's it. And then sewing up the open part in the bag where you pass it through. That is tricky in the instructions in this too, because they tell you to leave 1.5 inches from the opening. So when you turn it, you stitch all around. When you go to stitch up that hole that you've pulled everything through, you just fold it over on both sides, give it a light press, and stitch it across. Either hand stitch, I use a machine, but with it. Yeah, but you don't want 1.5 inches of fabric hanging out of that to fold in because you can't. It's too thick. And at the first time I did it, I thought, okay, they know something I don't know. So I just folded it over, stitched it. When I turned it inside out, I had all this extra fabric hanging out, raw edges. So I unpicked it, went back in, and I decided, no, I'm going to cut this. So I cut it, folded it in, and that worked. Now, I am working on another clutch bag right now. You'll see it next week, probably. I did say after this one I was never going to do another one. But I thought, well, this one I decided to do because they came out with a video. Why the hell they didn't come out with a video on how to do this one, I don't know. But because they're both clutches, they're both basically the same, done, just different design, I watched the video. And guess what? When they still said, leave 1.5 inches of fabric hanging out of that hole. But they didn't in the video. They said it right in the video. They did. It gets me so angry. But they cut it 1/2 inch, which made more sense to me. But they were saying 1.5. Now, I thought that maybe I misheard them and they're saying 1/2 inch. No, they're not. Like 1/2 inch. Why you would say it that way, I don't know. And maybe that's how they did say it. And maybe that's what they meant, 1/2 inch. But in the instructions for this clutch, it says 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches. So yeah, can you tell I'm riled up about that? Because that pissed me off. Because you know why? I had to second guess myself. I've made bags before. I know about turning them inside out, upside right, upside down, whatever way, and sewing that. And I have never heard of leaving 1.5 inches. That's ludicrous. That doesn't make any sense. But I thought they know something I don't. They're the professionals. Well, I was wrong. They didn't. So that's the first problem you might want to be aware of if you do this pattern. And by the way, I have put a link in the show notes for Sweet Pea where you can get this if you want it. Second problem. Now they do sort of warn you about this. I've already mentioned that you put the lining goes into this. Well, there are many layers of fabric that go on top of each other in order to manipulate this whole thing so you get to the point where you have to turn it inside out twice. You turn it inside out twice, believe it or not. I'm not even going to explain how that works because I'd lose you, because I'd lose myself. Anyways, I did that. Well, before you get to that, you're supposed to sew these little strap things you make. These pieces here that hold the D-ring. Okay? No big deal. Those are easy to make. It even marks. The machine will mark a stitch line where you're supposed to line these up. Okay, there was a problem with that. It did this straight line and it stopped. Went in here a little bit and stopped. Then it says, lay your strap with the raw edge towards the hoop and tape it down. Yes, okay, get that. You tape it down because this can spring up and it'll cause you grief. Taping down things is not unusual in these kind of projects. But here's the problem. It says center your strap on the line. Well, and that's not exactly how they worded it. They worded it in such a way I thought, well, where do I put it? I don't have crosshairs, so do I put it in the center of the line from the edge and then there's line over here? Or do I put it where the line stopped and that's where it's going and they mean centering it, on the top? I don't know. First time I laid it down and then stitched it, yeah, missed it. Because it wasn't close enough to where that line was. In the video for the other clutch bag, they actually show you and, oh, okay, that would work. But it didn't work in the way they wrote it. And this is a problem I have with Sweet Pea lately. Their instructions are confusing. What they need to do is stop writing them in paragraphs with each thing and writing them as bulleted points and doing one thing at a time. Because here's what happens. Maybe it doesn't happen to you, but it happens to me. I read the whole paragraph. And by the time I get to the end of the paragraph, even though it might be 2 sentences long, 3 sentences long, I forgot what it said in this part, in this sentence up here. And I have to go back. And then I get confused back and forth. Good thing you should take a pen and underline things. Make notes.
Maybe you could take a paragraph and make your own bulleted points.
Well, yeah, but why should I do that?
No, I know.
But yeah, well, that's what I do. I do that. I highlight in different colors too for it because it gets very confusing. All they need to do is separate out their instructions like that into a few words. Do this, do this, do this. Yes, altogether you're going to be doing the whole thing, but it's easier to take it in teeny little chunks than big wadded paragraph. Mm-hmm. So if I'd seen that, I might have understood this part a little bit better. Maybe I'm dense. Don't agree with me. I'm saying that facetiously and it was rhetorical. Okay, so
maybe you're just an idiot.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what this channel's called, isn't it? All right, so the next problem, still with these straps, is you have a lot of fabric. You have this part that's all completed on this part, which is pretty much all completed after you get these things sewn in. But then you're doing the backing. The backing goes on top of this. And there is a line that gets stitched all the way around, which will be your cutting line and when it stitches it down. The thing is, and they warn you about this. They do warn you about this. They say, Be careful when you come to the D-ring straps, because there'll be a bump and it may be your presser foot may catch on it. May. It does. Because it's too high. They suggest slow your machine right down and raise your presser foot up. Okay, here's the problem. Maybe on the machine that they did them on, you can do that. On my Janome 550 AE, there is only one position for the presser foot. I cannot adjust its height to compensate for something that's a little higher than usual. And I can't slow the machine down any more than it is, because I run my machine, unlike Walter, who runs his at full speed, which is what, 800 stitches per minute?
860.
860 per minute. I run mine at the lowest setting, 400. That's a story for another day why I do that. So there's no way I can slow the machine down. Like there's not like like on your sewing machine. You know, if you had a bump, you're coming over on your sewing machine, you'd probably slow your machine down so you didn't break a needle or whatever. And you just take your little slider and slide it over and you can slow it down. You can't on the Janome 550E. So I had to restitch that piece about 3 times. First time, yep, it caught, the machine made a noise. I shut it off immediately and went, oh God, if I've thrown out the timing on my machine. Luckily, I didn't. But the next time I tried it, as soon as it got up to that bump, I stopped the machine. And then I turned it off. So it would do like 1, 2 stitches. And if it looked like it was going to get over the bump, I do it again, 1, 2 stitches. So I'm poking the machine, right? And that got me through, except the second time I did it, I didn't realize that when it had caught, it knocked the hoop out of alignment. So I got over this bump, great. I got down here, it didn't get to this part. It stopped and started going down here right across this part. It's supposed to come all the way around and follow that at the edge. And I went, ah. So I stopped the machine. I unpicked. 3rd time's the charm. Knowing what I knew then, I got there. I did what I told you I did for it. It got over here. It was in. I had to turn off and put the machine back on again. The machine resumes where it left off, but it recalculated the hoop. So it was back in the right position, and I finally got it to do it. Now, in the process of all of this, there was a lot of screaming, gnashing of teeth. Neighbors thought there was murder going on in our house. Walter was not here. He probably wouldn't be here afterwards with the screaming and everything, because I would have killed him. Any live creature that came in my path would have died. It's a good thing we don't have Kitty anymore. No, I wouldn't kill Kitty, but I'd kill him.
Oh, Kitty'd go run and hide.
Oh, she would, because we've been through that before. Anyways, I got through it. Now, one other little sneaky thing, and this is for those of you that may have Janome machines, where you place your hoop, when you lock your hoop in, your bracket for that is on the left hand side of your machine. That's left or right? No, that's the right hand. On the right hand side of your machine, closest to the throat of your machine. Okay? That's how our Janome 550E works. Well, they're not using a 550E. They're using something else, and their hoop attaches out here off the end of the table, of the extension table to the left.
Yeah, more like how a Bernina works, or something like that, where
and brothers
and some of the brothers and that your what do you call it, embroidery arm is off to the other side.
Yeah. Okay. I've never had a problem with the way mine hooks up with any of the patterns before. This one I did, and it took me 45 minutes, possibly even an hour, to figure this out. See, what was happening is this. This is done in 2 parts. You do the flap, and then you do the clutch, this part. And basically they're the same shape, slightly different size. The clutch is a little bigger on the bottom, so you get this, this overlap on here. But they both are stitched out in the same direction on your hoop. Well, the problem is on the clutch part, there is a lining inside here. And so I've already explained that you put things on top, but you also put some of the fabric, you float it underneath your hoop or tape it. I prefer to float, but whatever, okay? Thing is, you have excess fabric. You have to have it because what it does is basically there's a line. You line up the fabric with that line. You have a little overhang of about 1/2 inch, and then the rest of the fabric shoots out from the hoop. When it's stitched down, you flip it over. So that makes it the right size. But you can't do that if that excess fabric, and I'm talking quite a bit of excess fabric, about 6 to 7 inches of fabric beyond your hoop. It's on the bottom. You have your hoop, you have your bracket. You can't hoop, you can't attach your bracket into the arm because the fabric can't go under that arm. And it's, if you pull it up or anything, it's catching in the mechanism. And I'm trying to think, what's going on here? Why can't I do this? There must be, what am I, having a brain seizure or what here? And I fought with it, and I thought of other ways to try. And I'm looking at their diagram thinking, have I got it the right way? Then I realized, it took me a while to realize that what I needed to do was to take that clutch pattern right at the beginning, when you call it machine, and go into the editing part of the embroidery machine and flip it horizontally so that the edge of the fabric is going to go out where it has miles of room and not get in the way of anything, rather than up against the other. But that took me like 45 minutes to figure that out. They didn't state that. Now, here's the bone I have to pick with Sweet Pea about this. They write these files for all of the machines. You just pick the machine you have. They have them for Janome. They have them for Husqvarna. They have them for Viking. They have them for Brother and all the other ones. I know their machine is one that doesn't attach its hoop the way my machine does. That's fine. But wouldn't you think they would have designed the pattern, since they're offering it for all machines, so it was suitable for the type of machine?
Either that, or at least in the instructions tell you to make sure that certain parts of the bag are going to be in an area where it's free to move or whatever.
Yeah, but they don't. That's stupid. That's just plain stupid, especially when you're offering it for all the machines. So that was hell. So I tell you this now. Now, for those of you that don't have a Janome machine, you probably won't have to worry about that. You may have to worry about height. And also, there was more height on this too, because you have a zipper in here. And I was using faux leather. Now, the faux leather is not very thick. It's not much thicker than the quilting cotton, but because there's so many layers on top of each other, maybe your machine will lift. I know some Brother machines do. They have an electronic setting where you can raise the foot, press your foot up a little bit more. Janome does not do that. So there is a problem. Now, one thing I haven't tried, and I was going to try today to see if I could actually, if I had that problem again, if I could stop the foot just before it gets to that bulge, and using the flywheel like you would on a regular sewing machine, see if I could manually advance it and stitch at the same time. I don't know if I can. I haven't tried it yet. I was going to do that today and I haven't done it.
Would you be able to, let's say, okay, I haven't done this bag, so I don't know. When you're stitching that part in, would you be able to do it manually with a regular machine and then start your stitching past that with?
No, because you'd have to take it out of the hoop to get it under your sewing machine.
Okay.
You could, well, I thought of trying that. You know, in the hoop is fairly big for this one. And you get it, but the chances,
okay, no,
I think just... you would, the chances are that you would end up pulling it out of the hoop. And then, probably, well, you'd have to go back to square one because you'll never get that lined up again. So, yeah, that thought went through my head, though, too. So anyways, it was a very frustrating process, and I said I will never make another one of these. This one's done. It's a one-off. And so what do? I buy another one. That's the butterfly one, because now they have a video, as I said. and I've watched the video, and I've carefully read all the instructions. And with my experience with this one, I shouldn't have, notice I say shouldn't have any problem with the other one.
Well, stay tuned.
Stay tuned. I will let you know, and I'll show you that. I may be able to show you that bag next week. We'll see if I do my homework. Whatever. Okay, so that's today's episode. What are we doing next week? Because that finishes this series on making the quilted patchwork bag in the hoop. Next week, we're going to have a bag show. We are going to show you the various bags we have made over the last few years. Not all of them are in the hoop bags. Some of them are bags by Annie. Some of them are like Walter's specialty Christmas bags. Some of them are some very elaborate bags that I have made before, which were all done on the domestic machine. Just so you don't think that we're amateurs, okay?
I haven't done a lot of different bags. I just had done a couple of different bags.
Yeah, well, I've done a lot. But anyways, we're going to have a bag show next week. But we are going to be featuring, right off the bat, Walter's finished bag. Okay. I hope. Pressure's on. You got to do it. Okay. And just before we go, announcements. There will not be a sewing with Stephanie and Stephen this coming Wednesday, which is March the 19th, because that's the day that we are off to a place about an hour and a half east of us. I'm doing a guild presentation that day. Wish me luck with that one. Who knows? You may never see me again. They may kill me. But we'll see how that works out. So there will not be a sewing with Stephanie and Stephen, unless, see, Stephanie's on a cruise right now. And so I don't know what her plans are when she gets back. So watch Stephanie's channel to see if she says anything about it. I suspect she's not going to bother doing one on her own because she's probably have boat leg. I don't know, whatever, when she gets back, and she's probably wants to get some other things done. So you have a week off for those of you that are regularly there. And I just don't want, I know I'm going to get it. I'm leaving the link down in the show notes because it's always there for it. But I know someone's going to wonder, and I'll get an email. What? I couldn't get in. It wasn't working. We weren't there, honey. Okay. So I tell you that now. I'll remind you on Stephen and Walter Live. I will remind you on my vlog. I will remind you on Idiot Quilter next week. So there'll be lots and lots of warning about that. Okay. That's it. Anything you would like to add? You sat there. You're just the eye candy today for sure. Yeah. Walter got a nice new haircut. Look at that. It's nice and shiny.
I asked her to cut it short. So.
And she did. She practically.
Well, actually, I just told her to cut it short on top. I said you can sort of leave the sides alone.
Oh, try to do a mullet.
But she decided to go all the way around. It's okay. I like it that way. I don't have to brush it. I don't have to comb it. I don't have to do anything to it.
Except shine it. Whatever. Okay.
Except wear a hat when it's sunny.
Yeah. Okay, because that's not to keep his head protected. That's to keep everybody's eyes protected. The glare. Okay. Hey, if we put a little orange on your head, we could reenact the lunar eclipse from last night. Yeah. Okay. That's it for us. We're getting silly now. All right. So we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.